Hey, Casey Hendrickson here on News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel. It's my pleasure to introduce somebody. I actually grew up watching this man on television, and he is one of my favorite all-time sports entertainment athletes. Mick Foley is joining us. Mick, how you doing, buddy?
Well, I'm doing very good. I appreciate that. I just funny, I ran into a guy 2 days ago who said almost the exact same thing. He'd watched me when he was a child, and I was one of his absolute favorites, and it was Shaquille O'Neal. And I was sitting at home, and then I was in the hotel looking at his Icy Hot patch commercial. I played NBA for 19 years, so I started doing the math, and I was like, you know what? He could have been a kid watching me.
Yeah, I started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, it's like 15 years. And so I went back, and I'm like, no, I was watching him for a lot longer than that. Yeah.
Started shocking me when grown men would say, I used to watch you when I was a kid. And like I said, I started doing the math. I'm like, I'm old, man.
Then I think last year I saw you on like Celebrity Wife Swap, and that was great too to see that.
Whenever I meet, and I tend not to generalize, okay? Mm-hmm. But I'll give you a couple of generalizations. If on Twitter someone asks you more than 10 times to follow me, yeah, he's probably from the Middle Eastern part of the world because I guess they haven't caught on that you have hundreds of thousands of people that follow you. And also, if someone looks at me and goes, "I know you from somewhere," it's going to be a woman, and she knows me from Celebrity Wife Swap. So. Whenever I go Celebrity Wife Swap, they go, that's it. You were very good. I really liked you and your family.
There you go. That's great. Now, also joining us is Tim Sullivan. Now, Tim, first of all, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. But this is interesting. We're not here to talk about, WWE or any of the wrestling stuff because you're actually on a different career path right now.
Hold on a second. Let me put the brakes on right there because people are almost not changing channels in their minds going, oh, I don't want to see him do comedy. It is a very wrestling-centric show that I do. And Tim's he's a great stand-up. I'm not necessarily a stand-up. I'm more of a storyteller. And the emphasis on comedic stories. But Tim's a huge wrestling fan. So he incorporates some wrestling into what he does. And then my show is called Tales from Wrestling Past because I don't want anyone to think that I'm going to be out there, hey, what do you think of this economy? Boom. That's not what people want to hear, and it's not what they will. I'll tie in a little bit of current events from a wrestler's perspective, but I always remember why I'm there, and I don't essentially want to be Mick Jagger on a solo album refusing to play Stones tunes.
Fair enough. Now, Tim, how long have you guys been kind of touring together? Because you're going to be opening for Mick.
Yeah, we've had numerous shows open together, and
basically, Tim's an Iowan, and if we're within 600 miles of Iowa, he'll get in his car.
He's rocking the Hawkeyes cap right now.
Yeah. So, and it's these shows remind me so much of wrestling shows in the sense that you try to build and you want the energy just right when you go out there. And for example, a guy who was trying to use Tim as a reference wanted me to listen to his link of stuff, and I was like, first of all, he's terrible, and second, he's obscene and pretty misogynistic, which is, that's my act. No, it's not. It's not at all. We really, for those out there listening, and if it's like a wife and she knows that her husband is a big wrestling fan, bring him to the show, and you will have fun. That's one of the most rewarding things for me is that usually when the wife or significant other comes up to me after the show goes, I have to be honest, I had no idea what to expect, and I really enjoyed myself. Because it's a cast of bizarre characters, and the stories, they're kind of crazy and surreal, but they're relatable in a very strange way.
Well, that's always the best comedy anyway, is having a character that's relatable, and of course you want everybody to have fun. And people don't know a lot about you, Mick, probably don't know you're a big family guy, and the mankind persona isn't exactly how you walk around on the streets.
No, definitely not. I did a good job. Right? We got a guy, one of your salesmen. I scared you when you were younger, right? I remember people come back like for meet and greets at WWE, and I was always pretty kind-hearted person. And so when I saw a kid from Make-A-Wish, I would try to walk over and say hello, even though they were there to see somebody else. And I had kids literally run away screaming. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm scary on TV. Completely forgot about that.
That's great. Well, he was actually sitting in your chair a couple of minutes ago, and we threatened him that he was probably going to get some fingers down the throat if he didn't move. But so, all right, so tell us a little bit about the show. When are you going to be playing? Where are you going to be playing? How much is it going to cost to get in? And
I don't know that last question. I think it's $20.
I think it's $20. I'm looking at, he's right here at $20. $20.
And the 20 includes, we make sure we have a Q&A session in the course of the show so people can ask their wrestling questions. I do that twofold. One, so people ask the questions, and two, secondly, because sometimes a question results in an answer and a story that I otherwise might not have thought of. And I'll come home and I'll be like, wow, that could be a story. I was in the UK and I mentioned something about a lightning bolt. This is an Indiana story. A lightning bolt coming down from the scoreboard in Indiana and striking the mound of earth I was standing on, because it was the first ever buried alive match in WWE. And for those listening at home, yes, we do that type of thing there. And it was the story was about telling Mr. McMahon, if you can make a bolt of lightning come down from a scoreboard in Indianapolis in 1996, I'm pretty sure you can find a way for me to fly into the air on a sleigh with Santa Claus at Madison. I could not convince Vince McMahon of the wisdom of me flying away at Madison Square Garden in a sleigh with Santa Claus. And the Scottish comic who was there was like, "That's a good story, mate. You got to work that in." So we do the Q&A. We also have the meet and greet comes with the $20 price tag. You don't have to buy anything else. And I just try to take people on a journey, try to make it fun for them, try to take them through some of my favorite stories, try to make it a little bit different every night because it's 4 shows. I'll try to make sure there's about 50% difference.
Yeah, that's always
in each show.
Interesting part of the show when people do ask questions, at least for me, because I've done various shows with them, and it's always good to see somebody ask a question that'll trigger like a great story. I'm like, why haven't you told that story before? And
then I write it down. And then there's the only ground rule is that you can't be that guy. You know the guy I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The guy who raises his hand and goes, did it hurt? And when the Undertaker threw you off the cell. Yeah. And people are asking me these questions if I've never been asked it before.
Of course.
So that's the only ground rule. You can't be that guy or that lady who raises their hand and asks me if it hurt. Speaking
of that guy, Mick, and Tim, you're probably going to have to run interference here because I don't know if Mick's going to be honest with me now, but you're given your background, and this is just kind of how it is when you get, professional fighters or athletes or things like that, they get out in the public. There's always somebody who wants to challenge them, and obviously with comedians, they're hecklers. Now, have you had anybody heckle you in any of these shows yet, and how do you respond to that?
You know what? I don't so much get hecklers as I get a couple of over-enthusiastic fans who believe they're it's tales from wrestling past. So in many cases, these are stories that have endings that have actually happened. And so somebody will yell out the ending to a story thinking they're impressing me. And it's like, and that's the problem. Or just someone who, you mention somebody's name and they'll yell because they believe they're at a wrestling show. It's really just the over-enthusiastic fans. I very rarely get somebody, who's there to attempt to make the show difficult for me. It happens occasionally, and I'm ready.
And that's the other thing, too, is, I'm just a skinny comedian, and that's how a lot of comedians are, and, people heckle it, but when you see somebody like Mick Foley up on stage, I think the last thing you really want to do is...
I liken it to the following analogy. Some people get mad and punch a hole through a wall, but they will not get mad and attempt to punch a steel girder.
Right.
I am that steel girder.
There you go. So, you talked about a little bit with the show. It's going to be pretty much wrestling themed, but now is that just the stories, or you guys are kind of talking about a little bit like some entries and things like that you have, and it's kind of a theme with some of the other comics, correct?
What's that? Injuries? They get injuries?
No, like entries and
entries.
Yeah, like entrances and things of that nature. Like how is the show put together? Is it pretty much just, hey, this is Mick Foley, I come up and I talk, or is there
I
more
have
to
something
it,
that the other comics don't have. I have entrance music.
Oh.
So I have my WWE entrance music. You come up there, every show. I try to make every show a unique experience. I can only assure you that we traveled yesterday. I traveled from Philadelphia to New York. I started my day out 4 a.m. I didn't end it until 3 a.m. And I have 4 kids, and I wouldn't be here if I stunk.
Right.
I'm not coming to your town to stink. It'll be fun. I don't know exactly what we're going to do yet because, like I said, we're trying to make it mix it up. So if someone wants to attend 2 shows in a row, they're essentially going to get a largely different show.
The fun thing is sometimes Mick will come up with an idea, and then just me and him batting it back and forth with each other.
And you try it out. You never know. Wrestling, in great part because you're on a weekly basis, consists of ideas that get attempted that don't always work. Now, luckily, my career was hallmarked by ideas that didn't work out in the most spectacular possible way and were captured on videotape. But even creative ideas, you asked about Mr. Sacco. That was just something I did one day to cheer up Mr. McMahon in the hospital, where he was on a heart monitor and a respirator for a bruised ankle bone. So he was taking that injury very seriously. And I showed up with a sock puppet as an attempt to cheer him up. And I just thought that was the only time I would ever use a sock puppet in my career. And it just turned out that people enjoyed it and had signs chanting Sacco's name. So you never know what works. And so we'll throw something out there. Like I was talking to Tim last night about, my interpretation of The Wizard of Oz and how I knew that wrestling fans didn't necessarily want to hear my interpretation of The Wizard of Oz, but they would listen to it if the role of Dorothy was played by Mankind. And so I'm not necessarily here tonight because I don't have my Glinda the Good Witch outfit for my witch. But, if something seems interesting to me, I'll go out there and I'll give it a try. And so even if it doesn't work, I think people enjoy seeing you.
There is a few surprises that we'll say.
You don't want to give everything away. I certainly understand that.
Yeah. There's a little bit of theatrics involved.
So, Mick, what on earth led you from doing what you're doing with the WWE Hall of Famer in that industry and coming into comedy?
Oh, you know what? It seems like two completely different worlds. You'd be surprised at how similar they are. I was given I spoke at many universities from 2000 through 2007, including Notre Dame. Notre Dame was one of only two universities that gave me a specific subject to talk about. They wanted me to talk about my unusual path to becoming an author. I believe it was Authors Week at Notre Dame.
You are a best-selling author, too.
Number one. Just want to throw that in. New York Times. There's a difference. Many hit the list, but not too many reach the top of it. Just want to put that out there for you. But I found that I gravitated towards the funny stories, so that it wasn't no one was advertising the evening with Mick Foley as an evening of comedy, but I gravitated towards the funny stories. And then when just 7 years was about as 7 years, a nice run on the college circuit where I was doing 7, 8, up to a dozen colleges a year. It wasn't like it was my job, but that kind of dried up. And when I had the chance to do a show on a comedy stage, I jumped at it. I saw how similar it was not only to talking to colleges, but also to the way I felt when I was in the ring when things were going good. And on the flip side, when I was starting out, it reminded me of how I felt in the ring when things were not going good. I don't mean when I was taking punishment, but when things just aren't clicking.
Yeah.
And it's that painful silence, and you'd rather be anywhere but in that ring. And there were times when I embarked on, actually doing this stuff and doing these shows where I was like, I'll never get on that stage again because it hurts. Tim, it downright hurts when a show doesn't go well. But I haven't had one of those. Honestly, I'm disappointed once in a while. But I haven't had that, oh, my God, get me off of here. I never want to come back here because usually it's the exact opposite. It's like this is what it felt like to be in the ring without the emergency room visits.
Yeah, it's tough because I actually get invited to another comedy club here in town to judge the comics occasionally. And when it goes bad, I mean, it's brutal.
It can be, yeah. And you see these guys before they go on, and they're every bit as nervous as guys who are about to take the field for the Super Bowl. It really is.
Well, and you were saying that about he had wrestler Dolph Ziggler at one of his shows, and he was...
Dolph loves comedy. He's a real student of it. He's been working on, an act for months, and I was going to give him a chance to do however much time he wanted in Arizona, where he lives. And I could tell he was a little nervous about it. And I said, Dolph, let me get this straight. In 2 days, you're going to be in front of 78,000 people. He goes, yeah. I said, you're going to be fine out there. He goes, oh, yeah, no problem. I said, but 300 people in Phoenix? He goes, I'm terrified, brother. I'm terrified. So we just had him come up and be part of the Q&A. William Regal, the same thing. He came up and did Q&A with me in Los Angeles. And I talked him into telling one of my favorite stories. He tells this story about a guy named Hammerhead, which is just sensational. And William Regal's really low-key. He's from the UK, and he just very mildly says, I have wrestled in front of 64,000 people in Tokyo, and I've never been as terrified as I am right now to tell that story in front of a couple hundred people at the Improv.
Yeah, I can't imagine him up there doing it just because I know him and the character and everything else. Yeah, that just seems a little odd to me. So, Mick, I hear that you have some tickets, and again,